You can see everything's quite relaxed and slow, there's no rush. And why should there be? This isn't a sprint, this is more a marathon sort of style fishing, where you're just moving slowly, looking, searching. Oh, that's the one. Come on, talk to me. There's a fly coming now to it. Oh, there's an eat. There we go. There he is. Hi everyone, this is Paul Procter with Fulling Mill, and today we're hopefully going to give you some hints and tips about catching wild brown trout in midsummer. Currently we're in sun, but it's one of those sort of inclement, changeable days. We've got cloud, there is a little bit of rain forecast, so it's not what I would consider a full-blown summer day where we're going to get 25, 26 degrees C and it's splitting the flags. Principally what we're aiming to do, because hatches aren't quite as prevalent at this time of year, obviously we've got blue-winged olives in the evening and caddis as well, or sedges if that's what you prefer to call them. We've got those occurring in the evening, which gives us a small, quite condensed window, which is all well and good, but what happens if you're not available in the evening? So this is daytime fishing we're discussing, and I sort of hang my hat on terrestrials. We'll talk a little bit more about terrestrials later. I've selected quite a dense tree-lined section of river because obviously that houses a lot of bugs and insects like caterpillars, beetles, even spiders, and these will drip into the water during the day hopefully, and we'll get some action. So let's see how the day goes. So I've just dropped in to the first pool here. You can see obviously it's quite shady. Generally speaking, with dry fly we like to present upstream. In these tight places you haven't always got that opportunity, and there's a couple of fish rising below me here, so I'm just going to try a cast across and drift the fly down to them. My style of fishing is with terrestrials. Obviously they fall into the water, so we're expecting fish to rise to them. So I'm sort of just slowly walking up the river. You can see me glancing now at fish. I just saw a rise down there. I'm slowly working up the river, just trying to pinpoint rising fish, and hopefully we can pick them off. We'll start the day. I've got a PP apt on, obviously. Great summer pattern, general sort of imitation of black gnats, fever flies, even house flies, of course beetles, and to some degree ants as well, flying ants. So I'll just try a couple of casts downstream. Yes, I will focus on the upstream, and we'll see what happens. Just edging in, keeping low. You see I've got the knee pads on, and the reason is you'll see there's a fair bit of creeping about. The tackle today is, I'm using an 8-foot rod, a 3-weight, just because it has a little bit more finesse. The water's low. You'll see as we go through the day it's low summer conditions, albeit the overhead conditions aren't like that, and you can perhaps hear the breeze now blowing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Just anoint the fly. Because I've got the polywing apt on, I'll just pop a little bit of grease onto the wing. And what I like to do is fairly flat water. Just a little bit of grease on the wing there. And because it's flat water, I'll actually degrease the leader a little bit. And it's just the tippet section I'm looking to do. I don't want the whole leader sunk. There's a couple of reasons for that. It affects the drift of the fly. And secondly, when we lift off to recast, because the leader's sunk, it drags the fly under and sucks it out of the water, and you get this horrible noise. Hopefully that was close to the actual noise. No, you get this horrible noise, and that can alert fish that everything's not well, and they'll perhaps shut down for a little while. So just got the fulling mill degreasant there, moisten that and just run that on the tippet, and there we go, we're ready for action. There is a couple of risers here. I'm not sure this downstream casting presentation will work in these circumstances, but it's sort of a means to an end here. We haven't really got any other option, so we'll try it. There wasn't actually, I just saw the snout of a fish come out there. Ideally, oh, that was a nice sip actually, I heard that. Ideally I'd like to keep my feet dry, but sadly there's so much cover behind me here that I need to edge into the water. And you know, just take your time when you're doing this, it's not a rush. I don't like pushing too much water about, so I'll just go as quietly as I can. I don't mind, it's maybe not that evident on camera. The section of water we're on is actually only about 30 feet wide, so I'm quite close to the fish. And again, beginners often agonize over how close can you get to the fish. I've got a nice backdrop here. I've got the appropriate usual uniform that us anglers wear, and that's the not very sexy olive colours. So I know I'm not going to stand out. I can just edge my way into the margins, hopefully get a cast off to these fish. You see I'm not trying to push too much water, just going nice and quietly. You'll see I've prepared my line, I've stripped the line off, so I'm almost ready to make a cast. I'm just waiting for a fish to show, and then I'll present the fly. And one thing you'll notice probably through the day, because we're in the tight confines, this isn't a place for sexy casts and loops. It's a matter of getting the fly in front of the fish. Straight line casting, i.e. when the back cast and forward cast are in line, that gives us our most effective or efficient cast. What I'm going to do here is the back cast is going straight here because I can't cast back here, and I'm going to bend the forward cast over there. So there's 2 or 3 fish here, and because it's a still pool, they're moving about a little bit and they're just dimpling rises. That's telling me that they're perhaps feeding on small items, albeit I've got a slightly larger fly. I don't always consider summer trout too sort of selective. Often in these circumstances, especially midsummer, they're quite grateful, and yes, they might be feeding on aphids or green flies, which I'll show you a little bit later. There's that fish. So I'm just casting parallel with me, and then I'll deliver a cast across the way. We'll just get a little drift here. It's fairly calm, and occasionally, sometimes, it doesn't hurt just to tweak your fly, because after all, it's a terrestrial that's dropped in, and it might wiggle a little bit or kick as it tries to free itself. Obviously in vain, it tries to free itself from the water surface. Fly's drifted out, we got a little bit of a drift there. And rather than recast immediately, what I'm going to do is just train the line back towards me and wait for another fish to rise. You can hear the reel there. I'm just winding in a little bit because I peeled off maybe a yard too much line. So by reeling in, I know I won't pop it onto the far bank with the next cast. We've got a fish rising upstream of us as well. What I'll do as well is just lay that rod off to the side. You can see here, and as the fly drifts down, I'll just drift the rod with it, just to afford it a little bit of slack to drift naturally. there's not enough wiggle room in this situation to manufacture a nice drag-free drift. By slackline casts, everything's tight, so it's a little bit direct, but we'll see what happens. You see me periodically glancing back because there's a fish, oh, and we're into a nice fish there. Giving the fish side strain, you can see that's just to try and get him in quite quickly. Side strain is far better than just having the rod up vertical. Just gathering the line in. This is always the problem when you're in these situations. Have you got the headroom to get the rod and the fish in? There we go. There's our first fish of the day within 5 minutes of beginning. And yeah, snaffle the apt. So let's have a look at this fish. Nice tip for beginners is often you get a fish in quite quickly. If you turn them upside down, it almost hypnotizes them and you can see they lie nice and still. Again, a tip for beginners is, let's just get that fly out. Tip for beginners is, or everybody, I always keep the fish over the water. I don't take it up onto the bank because it flops out of your hand. It drops onto the rocks and things like that. So you can see he's just over the net, over the water. 3/4 pound, lovely summer trout there. A great start to the day. Let's hope it continues like that. Just drying the fly off now, having caught the fish. Towel, you can use Amadou. This is my preferred. Fluff that wing up. I'll pop on a little bit of powder there. It'll float quite readily anyways because of the yarn wing we're using. We're obviously using on this pattern the fully mill poly yarn, the dry fly wing. And already we're looking for another fish. Temperatures just dropped a degree or two. There is rain forecast, so not the best conditions for terrestrial feeders, I've got to be honest. I prefer a nice bright sunny day. I know we all shy away from them, but in midsummer that's the kind of conditions I look for. As expected, we haven't seen an upwing yet, and I suspect we won't see one all day. We might probably get some towards the evening, some blue-winged olives, so don't hang your hat on hoping for a hatch of upwing flies. There was another trout rising closer to the bank here. I suspect the disturbance of the first fish we've just caught maybe just alerted him. So I'm waiting to see if this fish will rise. I'm sort of primed and ready again. Just waiting. How long you give these fish, that's up to you, what you deem. It seemed a better fish, the rise. It gave a sort of audible slurp that we like to hear, and yeah, I'm prepared to wait that little bit longer. This isn't a sprint, this is more a marathon sort of style fishing, where you're just moving slowly, looking, searching, often backtracking. I would fully expect us later in the day maybe just to drop back to this pool to check it again, because different things happen through the day. It's still quite cool. Terrestrials, being land-borne insects, need a little bit of heat on them to generate them, to make them active. I would expect the main window of activity today given the temperatures, between midday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Of course, that's not written in stone. If it was a baking hot day, usually you get a nice spell of activity quite early in the morning from 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock and then late afternoon. But the temperature's well down for summer. It's below average. So I suspect the middle of the day will be our best chance. So in terms of reading rises, it is a difficult one, because I'll hold my hand up. I've come across fish that just push the tiniest bit of water and you think it's a half pounder, and sort of, yeah, you're not expecting what comes out. You pop a cast in and the fly gets eaten, and suddenly, boom, this this thing's away on you. They are difficult to judge. Often you can tell the smaller fish, sometimes because where they lie. The smaller fish generally lie mid-river. The big fish, in my experience, prefer to lie close to structure, the ones tightest to the bank, off the tree roots, etc., because they're near the lair, and if you hook them, obviously they like to fight dirty. You'll see on the fish I hook there, instantly I give side strain, take the fight to the fish. But reading rise forms is, you know, in my book, not straightforward. Can be difficult. Sometimes you see the snout of the fish come out and you can gauge the fish, especially if you're low down and you're behind the fish. You'll often from behind, let's say this is the river flowing towards us here, and you see the snout of the fish come out of above the surface like this. That can give you an indication of the size of trout you're casting at. This audible sip I mentioned earlier is a good indicator of a good fish. Often you'll hear this, and to me that signifies a better than average trout. The smaller fish tend not to do that. And also just remember these large fish, if we come across them, in fact all trout do it, they're aware that when they rise they can push a little bit of water, and that's why they often rise slowly and with deliberation. It's because they can push a little bit of water in front of them that can displace the item of food they're wishing to eat. I've got lots of footage about fish actually missing the fly, and the reason is, what we've got to remember, trout and grayling for that matter, they've got their eyes positioned on the side of the head, so they've got good all-round peripheral vision, but they've also got binocular vision in front of them. But we must remember, because their eyes are on the side of the head, that they've got a blind spot immediately in front of the snout. Imagining the peak of my caps, the snout of the fish, there's a blind spot there, so a nanosecond before they eat, they can't physically see what they're eating. They've judged it or gauged where that food item is, and if that food item gets displaced, they just rise to fresh air. You can hear the gravel crunching here. This tells me this is a little bit of unstable bank. It's probably not within the realms of what we're filming here, but just a general point for you, can hear the gravel crunching. It's an inside bank where gravel collects, so it tells you it's an unstable sort of area. Obviously I'm conscious of this. I don't like this, especially in low water conditions. Each step you take, you cringe, you think, oh my god, that could alert a fish. And it's not to the point of that trout is thinking, oh, there's somebody here to catch me. I'm surmising it's thinking along the lines of, what was that? That's unusual. I'll just sit tight for a moment or two and watch. Trout that are feeding periodically are a little bit more difficult to target because they haven't fully dropped the guard. So they've got sort of one eye out for danger and one eye out for food. Whereas when we get a good fall of insects, be that black gnats, beetles, or in the case of upwing hatches like mayfly, for example, fish will often drop the guard and feed much more sort of enthusiastically, and they are, I wouldn't say easier to catch, but you've got a very good chance. And these fish are a little bit periodic today, but it could improve. Let's see how it goes. But I am conscious about this sort of crunchy noise. You see, I'm just sort of always keeping close to the banks, using bankside cover, and I'm just going to pop myself down here because there was a rise opposite us, more or less. Again, another difficult one, hence the short rod. I'm usually a fan of longer rods, like 10 foot or 9'9" rods, and the reason for that is they give you a little bit more reach, especially on places like the chalk streams, because rightly so these days a lot of river keepers are leaving a sort of buffer zone of verdant growth along the river's edge, and if you've got a longer rod to reach over that, so much the better. And also that longer rod facilitates line mending as well. But longer rods in this sort of canopy are they'll be a handicap in my eyes. So we're down to 8 foot. I rarely go less than 8 foot. The reason is on shorter rods your timing has got to be more precise. Now I haven't got all the time in the world here, or anybody for that matter, to think about timing. This is quick fire stuff in the realms of this environment. So with the shorter rod, obviously you're confident you've got a little bit of swing room to make that cast without fear of catching the trees. So there was a rise opposite me here, probably just going to drift the fly down. If this was a big fish, I would wait for it to rise again, but sometimes these trout will come and find, they're expecting things to drop in, so they'll come and find your fly. And I'll just try a little cast over there before we move on. It's a difficult situation this, because immediately behind me I've got a tree. You can see it's an alder tree, and I've got to manufacture a cast to the far bank. And there he goes. Okay, we're going to move up. There's a rise on my near side here. Obviously I'm a left-hander, so it would mean casting like this and I'm into the foliage. As a right-hander, it's a much easier cast. We've got clearance, and one area I'd urge you to work on is casting cross-body, where me as a left-hander will cast like this. It just now allows me to put the cast out into the clear area. There's the rise again. I just saw him. We can just creep up a tiny bit. Don't want to be too close or too noisy on this fish. Again, I'm just cautious of this crunching on this near side bank, where obviously in a flood all the pebbles and stones get deposited and they never tend to settle. You'll actually see when I fish, nice tip for beginners, I don't use the keeper ring, I actually position the fly up the rod. The reason for that, it allows the tip of my fly line to be outside the rod tip. I can tap the rod to get the fly off like that, just peel off a little bit of line and cast it down, and now I'm in a position, I'm ready to present to the fish. This wind's a bit of a menace, I'll be honest. Because the wind's ruffled the surface, I'm just making a couple of sort of speculative casts. I can get away with that because the ruffled surface sort of masks any disturbance. I'm just searching the area at the moment. I think it could be one of them days where we do a little bit of sort of speculative casting in sort of tight known areas, and also hopefully targeting rising fish. Just letting that fly drift back towards me and gathering up line nice and slowly because it's on this soft edge. What I'll do now, obviously, because I'm searching, I'll just creep up a foot or two and repeat, just to get the fly that little bit further up. I'm just fishing a short line. You could argue that should I extend a little bit more line outside the rod tip, but I like to keep it sort of all nice and compact. In these areas, for me, you've just got to move about slowly. Your eyes have got to be everywhere because it's undisturbed section of river, it's overgrown. Fish could literally be anywhere. I can see a fish rising over on the far bank, and look, as tempting as it is to go straight for that fish, I'm actually going to fish my way into the situation, covering the water as I go. That's a nasty breeze. Kind of losing the visual on my fly in and out of the shadows and the bright part of the water, but I've got a rough idea where it is, and any disturbance, don't think about it, don't hesitate, just set the hook or tighten. There's that fish I can see, but like I said, I'm going to work up towards him. Just take my glance behind me because we've got this big towering alder tree and don't want to be catching that. Some nice drifts down there. Let's just see if this wind eases up for a moment, because there is a fish just over here that's risen 2 or 3 times. Just shown again there. Just short of him there. I've peeled off an extra 1 or 2 of line, and we'll try again. Now sort of perilously, I'm now a little bit too tight on this tree behind me, so see me looking back at the back cast all the time just to make sure I'm not catching that tree. I know we missed that fish. Came quite hard at it. When I say came quite hard, it was aggressive. I could see the push of water. To me, he tells me he wasn't totally convinced. The fly could have been dragging a little bit. It's one of them, I always liken it to a sort of kitten. When you're teasing a kitten with a piece of wool, they want to have a go, sometimes they will, but sometimes they won't. And I suspect that fish sort of thought, yes, I want to eat that fly, but there's something not quite right about it, but I'm going to have a go anyways. And I just saw the little push of water, which tells me it came quite quickly at the fly. So what we'll do, we've fished this pool, let's go and have a look at another section of river. We've got an interesting pool here. It's quite well protected. It's a great place for trout to hang out in summer. There's obviously shade there, so fish feel quite safe and secure. And it's an area that they'll, to me, periodically feed through the day. And what you've got to remember, in spring, when we've got a hatch of fly, let's say large dark olive hatch, some of us will be familiar with, but for those of you who aren't familiar with this hatch or those hatches, I can also include March Browns in there and olive uprights and iron blues. There's often what we call a hatch window, a period. It might be 2 hours, it might be 3 hours. Sometimes it may only last 30 minutes or so. But there's a definite window, and fish are aware of this, and they'll come out and feed with conviction quite hard in that period. What you've got here is, in the summertime, the situation is insects dripping in all day long, and fish will often come out and just feed for a short period. In 10 minutes they may come out, gobble a few flies, and then just go back and hide, because we've got to remember, whilst we think as trout as predators, they're also prey as well to other creatures like otters. When they're smaller, it's kingfishers, herons as well, goosandas sadly, and obviously cormorants. So trout are fully aware that they can be predated on. So it's not like they will come out and be on station or patrol all day long. They select what they perceive are the key windows for that. If I knew the secret to that, we wouldn't be making this film. We'd be sat on an island somewhere in the Bahamas. So we're just dropping down to check out this pool. Again, first I'm looking for rising fish. There's a nice form line down the centre of this pool. And where you get a form lane, this is the fastest section of water, which obviously carries food more quickly. And it's the kind of area that fish like to focus on. They might not be sat right under the form lane. They often sit on the edges either side of the form lane, because it affords them a little bit more respite from the current. Not that we've got fast flowing currents today, and you can see how sort of low the water is. We're in drought conditions because of the extent of bare stones on this particular pool. On normal floors, where my rod tip is, the flow would be right up to here. So at the moment I'm just scoping for fish. Again, I'm low down, I'm crouching. There's two reasons for that. I've got a lower profile. There's a grassy bank behind me here. I'm camouflaged, so I'm fairly confident that if I move slowly, fish won't necessarily detect me. You know, and it's not unusual in these situations. You're creeping up like this, you actually go past a fish you haven't seen and it rises behind you. So that's a testament to your sort of stalking skills, if you like. And I'm just, the other reason for being low down, it can be very useful when it comes to spotting fish, especially under these tight areas like this. Well, what I might actually do is just edge up, pop a couple of casts up, search the form lane. Oh, there's a small fish, just come straight away to the fly. We'll just get him back quickly, I don't need the net. Just wet your hands. Unhook the fish and there he goes. Hopefully I'll run into him when he's 2 or 3 pounds. So whilst that wasn't the largest fish, you know, you give yourself a pat on the back that you've got the right fly pattern on, the presentation's good, etc. Just gives you that little bit of confidence that we need from time to time. You know, folks, I still go out, and especially at the start of a new season, and there's all the nerves of opening day, and you think, have I still got the magic? And you go out and you like this and you make them casts and a fish comes and eats the fly and you think, yeah, it still works. And that's a special feeling. I think I just saw a little rise. It wasn't a big fish. That fish was all of 20 feet away from me, that's all. Let's try and get the fly in under there. That fish, as small as he was, pounced on the fly. Just careful with this back cast because there's, oh, that's a nice cast, right at the back of that bow. Once the fly drifts down into water I've already fished, I'll just use that little period or window to creep up a pace or two, so I'm in preparation for the next cast and covering fresh water. right in the foam lane. That wiggle the rod there, just a little micro mend to pop the line over this stone that's visible in front of me or exposed. And whilst we target the foam lane, you know, fish can literally be sat anywhere. They can be just holding on the soft edges. Coming up to what I deem probably a nice part of this pool, there's a pinch point, overhanging ash bough, and a nice current just coming round the corner. It's where food gets concentrated, obviously surface food we're talking about. It's kind of area, I've had one eye on it all the while fishing up the pool. I haven't seen a fish rise, but to me it's the most likeliest place in this pool a fish would A, be on station, and B, sort of looking for food. So I'm just going to wedge up and pop a cast in there now before we leave this area. Just pop laid off, what I call laying off a cast up. Could do with an extra foot on that cast, which we'll try and manufacture. Need a slightly better angle. Oh, that's the one. If there's a fish there, come on, talk to me. So again, you just don't make repeated casts in these areas. I've just give it a second cast. So I'm confident now if there was a fish there, hopefully he would have eaten that. And there might be a fish there, but he's not looking up at this moment. So we'll move on. Probably going to spook, well, obviously going to spook any fish that are here. But just for you folks, I wanted to show you the pinch point I was talking about. A slightly faster current just here where the rod tip is, coming between the ash bough and the bank. These two boulders are squeezing the current, so you've just got an acceleration of the flow there, and it's concentrating the food. And these are the kind of areas you need to look for. Anyway, let's see if we can go and find another area upstream similar to that. One thing about high summer, yes, granted, we curse the foliage for ever catching our flies, but it usually affords you a lot more cover, so you can check pools out and areas without giving away your presence to the fish, which I'm doing now. I'm looking, just scoping a pool, hoping to see a rise. Can't see anybody. It's quite a shallow pool, which I look for these shallower areas often. Main reason being is, and especially when it's got a sort of rocky substrate, fish will often sit out on that. They're comfortable because they're camouflaged, but because it's shallow, they tend to rise more freely in that they haven't got to make such a longer distance from the stream bed up to the surface. It's often a foot or two, so fish will be a little bit more willing to rise in these areas. Yes, we all tend to gravitate towards the deep pools, and we'll see a little bit of that later on today, but don't always dash past what you deem the sort of wasteful, scrappy water, for want of a better word, that you don't think holds fish. There's not a lot of insects coming down the river at the moment, and I'm not sure whether to pop a cast or two up there. I think we might just do that. Looks a little bit too tasty to walk past. Just going to slip in. Again, you'll see often it's a little bit creepy crawly. It's not necessarily has to be like that. Don't, and you can see there I dislodged my landing net. Don't always think you've got to go sort of commando style everywhere. It's just this section of river is a little bit overgrown, and I've chosen that for a reason. I know it's undisturbed, and fish in high summer will often be out and active during the day, where on a larger, more exposed river that's subject to a lot of sunlight, those fish might lie low for most of the day. I'm actually going to pop a cast or two up here, just because it looks tasty, and because I haven't seen a rise, we'll switch flies to a beetle just because it'll make a plop. So popping on a PP target beetle from the Fulling Mill range, and obviously they're available with the white wing and the pink wing. Pink shows up good when there's a lot of white foamy water. I'm just popping a white wing one on, and the main reason for that is there's a high bank on the far side of the river, and it's sort of darkening the surface, so white will show up very well. Another sort of not tippers, if you like, but you see I just take the time to change fly. It's so easy to get into this sort of lazy is the wrong word, but just autopilot and stick with the same fly. I'm fishing a different fly because it's different circumstances. Yes, we know the apt works. We've caught a couple of fish. It's a nice fly for the slower sections. Here, because the water's a little bit more noisy, a little bit of white noise happening, I've selected a larger pattern, a more juicy pattern in my eyes for trout that maybe sat down there and possibly will come up and eat this. We've got a tree immediately behind us, so I'm just conscious of that. Just making a couple, and there we've caught the bank behind us. Let's get that fly back. What I actually did there is, you see, I actually used the rod tip as a long disgorger, poked it up to the bend of the hook and just prodded it to get the fly back. So again, just a nice little trick. Being as quiet as I can, need to obviously get the leader back out and everything. Conditions are so changeable today. I could see rain on the horizon now. Just fluctuating air temperature, which, as we all know, isn't the best. Take your time as well. I'm just checking the leader or the tippet length. Make sure, and there's a little kink in there. We'll just stretch that out. I often run my fingers down the tippet just to check for crinkles or kinks and things like that, especially if it's close to the fly. And kinks in particular are bad because it creates a weak spot which could give when we hook into a fish. So you've always got to keep your eye on these things in these situations. That beetle makes a lovely plop. Again, I'm just searching the pool, taking a pace or two up. Maybe it's a bit too shallow in here today. Try to keep false cast down because there's so much foliage behind us. Just short drifts, searching the water. You'd be surprised how shallow water fish will lie in. Okay, it appears nobody's home here today. So we'll move on, check another area. We're here on quite a big pool and slow moving pool. There's a tendency sometimes when we're fishing to rush, to go at it like a bull at a gate and let's get up to the streamy water quick, let's fish the next pool, the streamy water. My advice is just to go about it slowly and methodically. I've been here for a few moments now, and I'm sure I'll stand here for several more seconds or sit, several more minutes and sit, just watching, and hopefully a fish will sort of betray itself by rising. So like I said earlier, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. We're not rushing up the river. Often, yes, there is this sort of maxim, your fly's got to be in the water to catch the fish. However, in these low water conditions in summer, just continually thrashing the water can do more damage than good. So I'd advise you just to go about your business nice and quietly, and hopefully it'll pay off for us today. So we've got this pool up here we've just been talking about, and most people make a mistake of crossing on the pool tail, and it's an easy place to cross, and it's obvious why people do that. However, you can push quite a lot of water and make a little bit too much of a disturbance. So what I tend to do, you can see we're in the riffle below the pool. This is my preferred crossing point, especially in these conditions when it's low. First of all, there's that white noise we spoke about earlier, and that'll sort of mask you wading across the river. So let's cross here. Again, it's just about going slow. There's no need to go crashing around. See so many people sort of disturbing water unnecessarily. Even if you're not fishing a section of river, I tend to leave it undisturbed. I won't go crossing a river on a pool that I don't want to fish. We've just pushed a fish out of the tail of this pool, a good fish, in a silly little place. We've just edged up this pool. Obviously we've switched banks, which benefits a left-hander for once, and there's a very faint foam lane. You probably can't see it. I'm looking through the foliage of this sycamore tree, just scanning for risers. I'm very confident. I don't know why I need to whisper, but we do that when we're fishing. I'm fairly confident that any fish here are not aware of our presence at this stage. So just watching this foam lane. Hopefully a fish will poke his nose up. I think I actually saw fish then right up in the fast water. And again, there's that little sort of nugget. I'm not going to rush up there, ball up. There could be fish between myself and that fish. So it's because of the nature of the water that fish is in, I'm confident that it'll be on station. The current's fast enough to bring food to him regularly, so he'll be quite happy there. However, back here, this is a totally different beast. It's slow flowing, so I would suspect fish are patrolling or cruising in this area. They're obviously a lot more tricky to pin down as well. But we'll give it a little bit longer, and you can see again, we haven't made a cast. We're just sort of watching and waiting. I'll make no apology for saying that several times today. There's just a rise through here and another rise. So what I'm going to do, there's some older roots here. They'll afford a little bit of break for me to edge into the water and not push too much disturbance. Oh, I think I heard a good sip then somewhere. Yeah, we'll slip back and just pop through this gap here and ready ourselves. I'll probably switch back to the apt as well. Often when I just get into position, I'll let things settle for a moment or two, wait for the fish to rise again, make sure the fish is happy and we haven't alerted or disturbed too much of the pool. Of course, it's inevitable you are. going to spook the odd fish. For all we know, a fish could be swimming right past us here now because we can't see it, and it dashes up the pool, sending out this sort of alarm signal as it goes. Weave our rod through. You can see everything's quite relaxed and slow. There's no rush here, and why should there be? Because we've handled the leader a little bit, we've got a fine film of grease over our skin and hands. I'm going to take the opportunity to degrease again. See, I tend to hide things away on my pack or waistcoat or vest because I don't like things dangling about. They're an obvious line trap. Yeah, it looks great when you arrive with the necklace loaded up. I've arrived, I'm here, but I just find them more hassle than the convenience they actually, or you think that they provide. So I tend to house things away in the pockets for that very reason. Again, the snips you can see are hidden away just under here, but they're accessible. They're not dangling on a long zinger or anything like that. Because we're waiting on fish, it'll take a while for it to happen here, but I'll speed it up for you. You'll see your line trails downstream here, and in fast water it's pulling all the while, and then you come to cast at a fish, you've got to drag all this line out of the tensioned water, if you like. So what I do is I just catch the line over the finger like that. I'll show you that up on the bank a little bit later, but it just keeps the line there. When the fish rises, I drop the line like that, and it's all here at my side ready to go. I guess it's what we call tending our line. And there's a rise, so I'll drop that line like that. Fly landed just behind the fish. I'll let that drift away. Take a pace or two up. Probably just because I've just seen another rise, I'll repeat the same cast. Well, that's nice. I wish that was the first cast. Like I say, I suspect these fish are patrolling on this pool. Because of that, I've made 2 casts up now. I'm not going to make another cast. I've just seen another rise having said that. Let me just gather everything in. Again, we all make bad casts. That's the nature of the beast. Fly fishing's a hand-eye coordinated sport, very much like snooker and golf. Look at Ronnie O'Sullivan, for example. He doesn't pot every snooker ball, and I guess the same for Rory McIlroy in golf. He doesn't pot every single ball. We will make bad casts. For me, the secret is, if you put a bad cast up or you deem it a bad cast, don't try to rectify it by sort of launching into a back cast immediately and tearing line off the water. Just let the cast drift through the area and then represent. It's a lot less disturbance created when you do that. Again, we're in a situation, and we'll probably come across this a couple of times today, where we're on a particular fish, and how long do you give that fish? Do you wait here half an hour? Do you give it a couple more minutes? Again, it's down to the circumstances and as you as an individual. If it's what I deem to be a big trout, I would wait on the fish that bit longer. That's not me saying that smaller trout aren't worthy. It's just that obviously when you're on a stream, your head's on several different pools at one time, and you're thinking the grass is always greener, I could be here, I could be there. So here we've got a couple of terrestrials, basically what we term Diptera 2-wing. There's a small one here, and principally what you're looking at, the furthest one down on the rock which has just flown off as a housefly. These are what the trout will be feeding on. They are a terrestrial. What exactly is a terrestrial? It's a land-born creature, i.e. it's born on the land. A perfect example of that we'll all know is a butterfly. And these have a pupa stage. Some of them have a larval stage, but a pupa stage. The beetles have a larval stage where they're in the ground, the surrounding land. What makes this area good is a lot of the land is left untouched because it's so wild and rugged. Consequently, these flies aren't disturbed, i.e. there's no ploughing or anything like that. So it's a bit of a hotbed, and they emerge from the pupal or larval shuck out of the ground to the surface as a winged adult. Another good example of that is the daddy longlegs, which we're all familiar with, and the leather jacket is the larval stage, which lives in the soil. When they deem the time's right, they sort of crawl to the surface and emerge out of the shuck into the adult, and then live for so long as terrestrials. So that's basically your terrestrials. In that group we can include black gnats, fever flies, hawthorn flies, heather flies, beetles, the house flies we've discussed, aphids as well, or green flies, which we're about to come up to some sycamore trees, so hopefully we'll find some aphids on there for you to look at. And often when trout are feeding on terrestrials, I don't find them too selective, though you need to be careful what you say, especially on film, because it can bite you on the backside. But there are periods in spring, especially when the first leaf out, and we get the first sort of brood of aphids, if you like, green flies, the trout can get locked on. But these summer fish, I think, are fairly sort of tolerant of other flies and a little bit grabby, for want of a better word, i.e. some of these fish might be feeding principally on the likes of green fly, but then you present a big beetle or a large apter, something like that, and to them it's a Big Mac, you know. It's, oh, I'll gobble that up, I'm feeding here, and there's a very good meal, I'm not going to let that go by. Appears to be a nice fish just up here on our bank. It's just shone again. Okay, so fish rising up here, really slack water. There's a slight current seam. Just be as quiet as you can. It's a tricky situation because there's absolutely barely any flow. I'm actually going to lengthen my leader here as well. We're on approximately, judging by the length of the rod, when I get the leader unfolded there, 8, 12, approximately 14 foot here. I'm just going to extend that leader out a little bit. There's a fish really tight on my bank as well. Generally don't like too long a leaders on these tight streams, because certainly when you're pitching under trees, longer leaders are that little bit more difficult to turn over. So I tend to keep them sort of around the 12, 13 foot. I've got approximately 13 foot on anyways, and I'm adding a further 3 foot now to make this a 16 foot leader. Just adding a tippet section with a simple 3-turn water knot. Just gone for a CDC wing apt here, all-purpose terrestrial, little something with the CDC. Yes, it is high maintenance material, but there is something about CDC, certainly makes flies appear really natural. It's about as tricky as it gets, this. Really slow, slack water, high summer, fish aren't feeding sort of avidly, if you like. Because I've lengthened the leader, while I'm way back, I'll just throw an exploratory cast just to see how it all lands. Yep, that's nice. This back fish isn't that big. The one above it is a better fish. So we've got a scenario of two fish. There's actually a fly on the inside edge. Let's see if he eats this. No. Scenario here, there's two rising fish, one above the other, and it looks like the better fish is the upstream fish. So the dilemma is, do you make a cast for that fish, potentially lining the fish behind him that then scoots off and spooks everybody, or do you tag at the back fish and hope you can lead him away quickly as not to disturb the fish up in front of him? And I'm just going to take the nearest fish to me. Fly literally landed on the fish's head there. It's not that big. Nice collapsing leader as well. Fuck's sake. Are you in a position to get that out, Patrick? This fish is moving backwards and forwards a wee bit. I'm just watching that back cast, folks, because that's a nice cast. Just watching the back cast there, because there's an alder tree sat right in my way. That fly landed just to the right of the fish, but ahead of it. Fully expected him to find that. Be quite easy just to go straight into another cast here, but it's such a delicate situation. We'll give it a moment, hopefully he'll rise again. See it get blown off course. And this fish is weaving about here. So we're on a fish, a little bit tricky circumstances. I can see the surface debris now being pushed all over the place, so presentation is a little bit tricky. Pinning the fish down is challenging. Excuses, excuses, excuses. Fly's landing nice and delicately, and it's fish just rose 1 foot to the right of the fly. Let that fly come away, he's risen again. Again, I'm just conscious of that branch behind me. I think the fly's gone to the right of the fish there. And he looked at it, he buzzed the fly. Just saw the disturbance under the fly there. I'll give it a moment, let him rise a couple of times. It might be a case of changing the fly. Clearly seen the fly move to it, didn't like it. Just wait for a moment. I like him to rise a couple of times. He's shown once. Just make sure he's happy, he's comfortable. Again, we're in a dilemma. Do we show this fish the same fly or change fly immediately? Experience tells me to change fly, but there's always part of me that likes to throw the same fly at the fish just to see if you can get him to eat. What I will do, I'll try him one more cast with this fly. There he is. He did eat it. It's a nice fish as well. Some side strain there. It's one of the problems in these tight places, serious side strain, is fish will always try and get into cover. This fish dashed downstream of us, probably going for the alder on the far bank, and I'm just giving serious side strain. One of them scenarios, again, I've probably said there, Patrick's got me on camera, oh, it's not such a big fish, the better fish is up front, but this is a nice fish. Just got him on a short line now and just angling the rod to make the fish work there. You see, turn him, keep him turning. Let's get him ready for the net. There we go. That's a good summer trout, folks. So folks, just unhooked this fish here and he's coughed up a little housefly, and right next to it is the all-purpose terrestrial you can see there, and I think you'll agree it's a very good match. Anyway, let's get this fish back. That was the fish we just targeted. Took several casts admittedly, and we've measured the fish, 18 inch of summer trout, real spanker you'll see there. Nice fat fish, and yeah, happy ending for everybody. And the fish gets to live another day as well. There we go. Absolutely fantastic. So as you can see, a little bit of perseverance, quietly sneaking in, and not continual casts paid off on this occasion, and a spanker of a fish really. Doesn't get any better than that for summertime fishing in my book. 18 inch of wild brown trout. Fantastic.